My Mother-in-Law and I. Episode 4. Story by Truth Be Told. She deleted the message and sat back in her chair, tears welling up in her eyes. She didn't want to doubt him, but her fear of abandonment was so strong. She missed the days when they could talk freely without the weight of uncertainty. She longed for the connection they once had. Before the betrayal, before the hurt. Amara wiped her tears away and took a deep breath. She had to trust herself. She had to trust that their love was strong enough to handle anything, even this challenge. But could she trust Abina the way she wanted to? The next morning, Abina left early for a meeting with the company that had made the offer. He had told Amara he would be gone for a few hours, but as she got ready for the day, she noticed something that made her pause. His phone, which he usually carried with him, was sitting on the kitchen counter. Amara stood frozen for a moment. There was no reason for his phone to be left behind. He had always taken it with him, even to the bathroom. Why leave it now? A small voice in her head whispered, "This is your chance to know the truth. Check his messages. You have every right to." Her heart raced as the temptation to look at his phone grew stronger. The fear and doubt that had been building inside her made it hard to ignore the urge. But she took a deep breath, trying to push the thoughts away. She wasn't that person anymore. She had promised herself that she would trust him. Just as she was about to turn away, the phone buzzed. A message came through. It was from a name she didn't recognize. "Are we still on for tonight? The hotel is booked, and the arrangements are all set. Can't wait to see you." Amara felt her heart drop into her stomach. Who was this? The message was casual, too familiar, and it made her stomach twist in a way she didn't want to acknowledge. Her hand hovered over the phone, and for a moment, it felt like time had stopped. The trust she had been fighting so hard to rebuild felt like it was slipping away. But then something inside her shifted. She pulled her hand away and took a deep breath. No, this was not how she wanted to handle this. She couldn't jump to conclusions without talking to Abina. When he came home that afternoon, she was waiting for him in the living room. He could see the storm brewing in her eyes as soon as he entered. "Amara, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "Abina," she began, her voice shaking, "I saw the message on your phone." Abina froze, his face paling as the truth sank in. "I can explain." Amara stood up, her heart racing. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore, Abina. What is going on?" He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, his voice quiet as he finally spoke. "Amara, I made a mistake. I was offered an affair, a chance to live the life I thought I wanted. But I turned it down. I turned it down because I know what I have with you is more important than anything else." Amara's heart thudded in her chest as she listened. She didn't know whether to believe him. But one thing was clear, this was the test. The real test. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that felt like the calm before the storm. Amara sat across from Abina, her heart torn between what she wanted to believe and the overwhelming fear that clung to her. The weight of his confession hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating her thoughts. She had given him the benefit of the doubt, trusting him after everything that had happened. But now, with this new revelation, could she trust him again? Abina's eyes were filled with regret, his face etched with guilt. He had seen the hurt in Amara's eyes, and it shattered him. He knew he had let her down, that he had crossed a line he should never have crossed. The message was a reminder of how easy it was to slip into temptation, to allow a fleeting moment of weakness to undermine everything they had built. "I didn't go through with it, Amara," he said, his voice steady but full of remorse. "I made a choice, and that choice was to stay with you. I knew it was wrong, and I couldn't betray your trust like that. Please, believe me." Amara's eyes were clouded with doubt, but she tried to hold her ground. "How do I know you're telling the truth, Abina? You had the chance to betray me, and you didn't. But how do I know you won't do it again? How can I be sure? Abina leaned forward, his hands resting on the table, his voice low and sincere. I don't know how to prove it to you, Amara. But I want to try. I want to rebuild your trust. I want us to be stronger than we were before. This isn't just about a job or a decision. It's about us, our future. I don't want to lose that. Amara felt her heart twist. Part of her wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that he had truly changed, that he had learned from his mistakes. But the other part of her, the part that had been hurt so deeply, couldn't let go of the fear that he might hurt her again. She had given so much of herself to him, and the thought of losing him or having him slip away again was too much to bear. She stood up, pacing the room, trying to clear her mind. I don't know if I can keep living like this, Abina. We've been through so much. I want to trust you, I really do. But I don't know if I can keep putting myself through this. Abina watched her, his face a mix of sadness and hope. He understood her hesitation, and he didn't blame her for it. He had broken her trust, and now it was his job to prove that he was worth it. He had to show her that he could be the man she needed him to be. I know I don't deserve your trust, Amara, he said quietly, his voice raw with emotion. But I want to earn it. I want to be the man who proves to you that I love you and that I will never take you for granted again. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Amara stopped in her tracks, her eyes searching his. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly as he spoke. She had always known Abina to be a man of honor, someone who would fight for what he believed in. But now, he was asking her to trust him once more. And in that moment, she realized that she was facing a choice that would determine the course of their relationship. She could walk away, protect her heart from the risk of being hurt again. Or she could stay, take a leap of faith, and trust that Abina was telling the truth. Amara sat back down at the table, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. I'm scared, Abina, she confessed, her voice trembling. I'm scared of opening up again, scared of being hurt. But I also love you. I still love you. Abina's eyes softened, his heart swelling with a mixture of relief and gratitude. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but firm. I love you too, Amara. And I know I've messed up, but I promise you, I will do everything I can to prove that I'm worthy of your love. Amara squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of the decision settle in her chest. She knew that forgiveness wasn't something that came easily, and that rebuilding trust would take time. But as she looked into Abina's eyes, she saw the man she had fallen in love with, the man who was willing to fight for their future. She took a deep breath. I'm willing to try, Abina. I'm willing to take the chance. But you have to understand something. I can't live in fear of losing you again. We need to work on this together, every day. No more secrets. No more lies. Abina nodded eagerly, his face filled with determination. I swear, Amara, there will be no more secrets. I'm all in, for us. The tension between them slowly began to lift, replaced by a sense of hope that had been buried under layers of hurt. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time in a while, Amara felt a flicker of belief that they could make it through. Over the next few days, they took small but important steps toward rebuilding their relationship. Abina canceled the job opportunity in the other city, realizing that the most important thing was not career advancement, but the life he had with Amara. He knew that his decision would be a sacrifice, but it was one he was willing to make. He spent more time at home, being present in ways he hadn't been before. He listened to her, showed her affection, and made sure she knew that she was his priority. Amara, in turn, started to open up more. She allowed herself to be vulnerable, to express her fears and doubts. It wasn't easy, but each conversation brought them closer. She had always been the one to hold things in, to protect herself from getting hurt, but now she was learning to let go of her walls, to trust that Abina wouldn't betray her again. Their relationship was still fragile, but it was stronger than it had been in a long time. They didn't have all the answers, and they didn't know what the future would hold. But for the first time in a while, they both felt like they were on the same page, working together to create the life they both wanted. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be bumps along the way, moments of doubt and fear. But Amara and Abina were ready to face them, hand in hand. Days passed, and slowly but surely, the tension between Amara and Abina began to ease. Their relationship, once fraught with secrets and misunderstandings, started to regain the warmth it had lost. They spent more time together, reconnecting in ways that reminded them both of the love they had shared before the storm. Abina, feeling the weight of his mistakes, poured his energy into making Amara feel special again. He began to surprise her with small gestures, flowers on her desk, breakfast in bed, spontaneous road trips to places they had always talked about visiting. Each thoughtful act seemed to bring them closer, and for the first time in a long while, Amara felt like she could breathe again. But even as the good moments piled up, a lingering doubt still clouded Amara's heart. She knew they were rebuilding, but she wasn't sure if the foundation was strong enough to withstand another storm. She had forgiven him, yes, but forgiveness was not the same as trust. And trust, she realized, was something that couldn't be restored overnight. One evening, as they sat on the porch, sipping tea and watching the sun dip below the horizon, Amara turned to Abina. Her eyes were searching, her face a mask of uncertainty. Abina, she started, her voice softer than usual, I know things have been better, and I appreciate everything you've done to make things right. But I have to ask, how do we make sure this never happens again? What are we doing differently this time? Abina looked at her, the question hanging in the air. He had been waiting for this moment, the moment when Amara would express her deepest fear, the fear that still gripped her heart. He knew she had every right to be uncertain, but he also knew that this was their chance to prove that they had changed. He placed his cup down on the table, turning to face her fully. Amara, I know I can't erase the past. I know I hurt you, and that's something I'll never be able to take back. But what I can do is work every day to show you that I am not the man I was. I can promise you that I'll always be open with you, that I'll never hide anything from you again. And I'll show you, not with words, but with actions. Amara's heart tightened as she listened to his words. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that he had learned from his mistakes, that he would never take her for granted again. But the truth was, she was still scared. She had been betrayed before, and that fear lingered in her chest like an old scar. What if you don't keep that promise, Abina? She whispered, her voice trembling. What if, one day, I wake up and realize I've been living in a lie again? Abina's eyes softened with understanding. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his grip firm but comforting. I can't promise that things will always be perfect. We're human, Amara. We make mistakes. But I can promise you this. I will always work to make things right. I will never intentionally hurt you. And if I do slip up, if I make a mistake, I will own up to it immediately, and we'll face it together. We're in this as a team. Amara looked at him for a long moment, weighing his words. The fear in her chest began to loosen, but it didn't disappear completely. She still had doubts, still had questions. But in her heart, she knew that there was no way to move forward without trust. And for trust to grow, they had to be willing to take risks, together. She finally nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Okay, Abina, I'm willing to try. But this time, we do things differently. We don't hide anything. We don't let anything fester between us. Abina smiled, his heart swelling with relief. You have my word, Amara. This time, we'll build something stronger. Together. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Amara and Abina worked hard to rebuild their lives. They attended counseling sessions together, learning how to communicate better, how to handle conflict without letting it tear them apart. Abina took extra steps to prove his commitment, whether it was leaving his phone unlocked so Amara could check it without question, or inviting her into decisions that affected both of them. They also began to rebuild their relationship with each other's families. Abina took Amara to meet his parents for the first time since the incident, and she found herself nervous about what they would think of her, of their relationship. But his family welcomed her with open arms, offering her the love and support she had so desperately needed. For the first time, Amara felt like she was part of something bigger, a family that embraced her for who she was, not for the mistakes she had made. Meanwhile, Amara's family had started to warm up to Abina again. Her parents, initially skeptical of his sincerity, saw the changes in him, saw the way he treated her with more care, more respect. Slowly, they began to trust him again, and in time, even her younger brother had started to see Abina as the man he always hoped he would be for Amara. But there was still work to be done. They both knew that Amara's fears, though lessened, still held some weight. There were moments, late at night, when she would lie awake in bed, wondering if this was all too good to be true. Would Abina slip back into his old ways? Would she be left holding the pieces of a broken heart once again? And Abina, too, struggled with his own fears. He had hurt Amara once, and the thought of doing so again haunted him. He worked hard to keep his promises, but he knew that nothing in life was certain, and that scared him. What if the trust they had built wasn't strong enough? But despite their doubts, they faced each day together, step by step, slowly weaving a new future. It was one evening, a few months later, when Abina took Amara's hand in his once again, sitting on the same porch where they had once made the decision to start over. The night air was warm, and the sky was painted with the deep hues of twilight. I've been thinking, Abina said, his voice quiet but filled with purpose. About us. About everything we've been through. Amara turned to him, her heart beating a little faster. What about us? Abina smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that lit up his eyes. I know we've been through a lot. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to build a future with you, one filled with trust, love, and no secrets. Amara, will you marry me? Amara's heart skipped a beat, the question catching her completely off guard. She looked at him, searching his eyes for any sign of doubt, but all she saw was sincerity. All she saw was love. With a tear slipping down her cheek, she nodded. Yes, Abina, yes. And in that moment, amidst the stars and the silence of the night, Amara realized that, though their journey had been long and difficult, they had finally found the peace they had both been searching for. Promise fulfilled. The days following Amara's acceptance of Abina's proposal were filled with a whirlwind of emotions, excitement, fear, hope, and a deep sense of renewal. The promise of a new beginning hung between them like a fragile but precious thread, waiting to be nurtured with every action, every word, every glance they shared. Abina couldn't have been happier. He had longed for a second chance, and now that he had it, he was determined to never take it for granted. Each moment with Amara felt like a small victory, a step further away from the pain and betrayal of the past. He showered her with affection, finding new ways to show her that he would never again allow her to feel alone or unloved. Amara, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of emotions. Part of her was still afraid of the unknown, of how things would unfold, but another part of her was filled with optimism. She could see the changes in Abina, she could feel the sincerity in his actions. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like they had a fighting chance. They decided to make their relationship official by celebrating their engagement with their close friends and family. Abina insisted that the event be simple, intimate, and meaningful, a gathering that reflected who they were as a couple and the love they had fought so hard to rekindle. The evening of the celebration arrived, and Amara found herself standing before the mirror, adjusting her dress. It was a soft gold gown, the color reflecting the warmth of the new chapter they were beginning together. Her reflection stared back at her, but for the first time in years, she didn't see the woman who had been broken. She saw someone stronger, someone more confident. As she turned, checking herself from every angle, she was interrupted by a knock at the door. Amara. Abina's voice filtered through, soft but urgent. She smiled, walking to the door to open it. Abina stood there, dressed in a sharp suit, his smile wide and genuine. In his hand, he held a small bouquet of fresh flowers, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the serene evening. "You look stunning," he said, his eyes never leaving her face. Amara couldn't help but blush, feeling the familiar warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you. You look amazing too." He stepped inside, handing her the flowers. "I know we've been through so much, but tonight, we celebrate us. Not the past, not the mistakes, but the love we've built. This is our moment." Her eyes softened, and she took the bouquet, inhaling the sweet fragrance of the flowers. "I'm nervous, Abina. What if it's too much? What if things don't turn out the way we hope?" Abina stepped closer, gently lifting her chin to meet his gaze. "Amara, we've already overcome the hardest part, the fear. Whatever happens tonight, we're stronger than we were before. The love we share is real, and that's all that matters." Amara felt the truth in his words seep into her heart. He was right. The fear that had once controlled her was slowly dissolving, replaced by something far more powerful, trust. Together, they made their way to the venue, a quiet hall near the outskirts of the city. As they arrived, the warmth of the evening sun had just begun to fade, casting a soft golden glow over everything. Family and friends were already gathering, their voices blending in a harmonious hum that filled the air. Amara's parents were the first to greet them, beaming with pride. Amara's mother, once wary of Abina, now welcomed him with open arms. She had seen the changes in him and was ready to accept him as the man who was rebuilding her daughter's trust, piece by piece. "I knew you two would find your way back to each other," her mother said, embracing her. "There's a strength in your love that not many people have. Don't ever let it go." Amara smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her at her mother's words. It was the first time in years that she felt truly supported, truly understood. As the night progressed, laughter filled the air. The sounds of clinking glasses, soft music, and the hum of lively conversation surrounded them. Abina and Amara were constantly surrounded by their loved ones, and every time their eyes met, there was an unspoken connection, a bond that had only grown stronger with time. But as the night wore on, Amara found herself quietly observing the people around her. For so long, she had been trapped in her own fears, unable to see beyond the immediate pain of the past. Now, as she watched her friends and family celebrating, she realized something vital. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. She had Abina, yes, but she also had a network of people who cared for her, who supported her. Together, they had all helped her heal. It was during one of these moments of reflection that Amara felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find her father standing behind her, a proud smile on his face. "Amara," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I can't tell you how happy I am to see you so at peace. You've always been strong, but tonight, I see something different. I see the woman you were always meant to be." Amara's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you, Papa. I couldn't have done this without you." He patted her hand gently. "Remember, my daughter, Love isn't always easy. But when it's real, it can conquer anything. Don't let go of the love you and Abina share. Keep nurturing it, keep growing together. As the evening wound down, the last song played, and the guests began to say their goodbyes. Abina took Amara's hand once again, pulling her aside to the quiet corner of the hall. "There's something I've been wanting to say," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "What is it?" Amara asked, looking up at him, her heart fluttering in her chest. "I know we've come a long way, and I know there will be more challenges ahead. But I also know that whatever happens, I'll be by your side. For the rest of my life." Tears welled up in Amara's eyes as she looked at him. She had always dreamed of a love like this, but never in her wildest imagination did she think she would have it again after all the pain and hurt. But here, in this moment, she realized that sometimes, the best love stories are the ones that have to be rebuilt, brick by brick, promise by promise. "I love you, Abina," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I love you too, Amara," he replied, his voice just as soft. As they embraced, the sound of the final song playing in the background seemed to be the perfect end to a beautiful evening. It was a moment of peace, a moment of healing. And as they walked hand in hand into the future, Amara knew that, no matter what, they would face it together. Amara woke up the next morning with the sun streaming through the window, its light casting a warm glow over the room. The events of the previous night, the celebration of their engagement, still felt like a dream. It had been a night full of love, laughter, and moments of clarity that Amara had longed for. She turned over in bed, glancing at Abina, who was still asleep beside her. His chest rose and fell with each breath, peaceful and untroubled. She studied his face, tracing the lines of his features with her eyes, marveling at how far they had come. Amara had been afraid of opening her heart again after all the betrayal and heartbreak. But now, she felt different. Something had shifted in her, and it wasn't just her love for Abina, it was the realization that she was finally learning to trust again. Abina stirred beside her, slowly waking up. He stretched, his muscles relaxing as he turned toward her with a smile that lit up his face. "Good morning, beautiful," he murmured, his voice still husky with sleep. "Good morning," she replied softly, her voice tinged with affection. He reached out, pulling her into his arms. "Last night was amazing, wasn't it? I don't think I've ever felt this happy." Amara smiled, resting her head against his chest. "It was perfect. The love we've built, it's real. I'm not afraid anymore." Abina held her tighter, as if protecting her from the world outside. "And you shouldn't be. We've been through so much, but we're stronger now. Together, we can face anything."